What's up everybody, I'm Dr. MonDea. In this video I'm going to show you the results of my testing and what the odds are for getting a certain rarity from the mystery box. The video will cover the possible rarities from the box split up by rounds, a deeper look at the ray gun and the die shockwave drop rates, and after that I'll show you the results from the Coffin dance easter egg. This is a project I've been working on since launch. In the weeks leading up to it, Treyarch showed us that the whole weapon system would be different compared to previous zombie games. The addition of a rarity system was introduced, and it made the whole community wonder how that would work exactly. The short answer is that a higher rarity gives you more damage and more attachment slots. But how does that affect the mystery box was my question. And since you can simply choose your starting weapon and upgrade its rarity throughout the game, me along with a big part of the community were afraid that the mystery box would become useless. And to some extent, in many cases, it actually is less useful than it used to be. If you pick a good starting weapon and you don't die and bleed out, you can basically play the whole game with just your loadout. But say you bleed out and lose all your weapons and salvage, or if you just want to mix things up or get a good secondary weapon. What are your chances of getting a high rarity weapon or even the ray gun from the box? Well, I've tested it. I collected data from 2000 mystery box hits, spread throughout the early rounds, mid-game and high rounds. By now most people probably noticed that in higher rounds you get higher rarity guns from the box. So I split up the data in 7 different sections, separating them by the current round of the box hits. Let's start off with the very early rounds. These go from round 1 to 10. Obviously I didn't get any box hits on round 1. The lowest round I got data from was round 4 and most of it came from round 7 to 10. I have 216 results before reaching round 11. And as you could probably guess, it's mostly green and blue rarity. But I think the most interesting part about these first sections up until round 20 is looking at what are your chances to get a higher rarity weapon, like purple or orange or even a wonder weapon. 8% to get at least a purple rarity is pretty low. So unless you get very lucky, I would say it's mostly not worth it to go for the box in the first 10 rounds. Also I should note that out of more than 200 box hits, I never got the ray gun in these rounds and I got the die wonder weapon once. Of course it's possible, but it's extremely rare. In the next section the data covers 285 mystery box hits, going from round 11 to 15. The reason I split these next sections up by 5 rounds is because I think the majority of people play up until round 30ish. So I thought it would be better to separate these rounds in smaller and more detailed parts. As you can see, there immediately is a big shift in those lower rarity weapons. Compared to the previous chart, blue has basically switched with green in being the most common. Also the chance of getting at least a purple rarity has more than doubled, being a 1 out of 5 chance now. If you really want to get a good box weapon early, I think it's a viable option to go for it in these rounds, but don't be fooled by the orange slides in this chart, those were mostly chopper gunners. The ray gun and the die shockwave are still extremely rare, so if you're going for high rounds for example, I suggest don't spend your points just yet. The third section goes from round 16 to 20, containing 255 hits from the box. Again, green and blue cover more than half the amount of the chart, but purple takes a big jump. The chance of getting at least a purple gun is now 1 out of 3. You may also notice that the chance of getting orange rarity has dropped compared to the previous chart, but as I said in the previous section, I got a lot of chopper guns between round 11 and 15. In this part I only got 1, so I can say that the chance of getting an orange rarity gun is more or less the same. The golden rarity has also increased quite a lot here, but it's not really a trend, but more an exception in the results. I'll be explaining this later on in the video when we take a deeper look at the wonder weapon data. Section 4 out of 7 covers round 21 to 25, with a total of 315 mystery box attempts. Purple takes over from blue in being the most common rarity, but the chance of getting orange is still kinda small, and 1 out of 4 box hits can still give you a blue or green gun, which are kinda weak in these rounds. By this round you probably already have at least 1 viable gun, so I wouldn't try your luck just yet unless you really need to. Even if you have a lot of points, I would save them for a couple extra rounds. Now for the last 5 round section, going from 26 to 30, I did 243 box hits. I think from here on out the overall value of the box increases by a lot. Of course by this time you may have gotten your loadout gun to orange rarity, but let's assume you want a good secondary or maybe you got a setback from bleeding out. Luckily green rarity is basically inexistent, because it's worthless by now. So is blue, but as you can see, a blue gun gets pretty rare too. The most interesting part here is that 1 out of 3 guns were orange rarity. Let's say you got a wonder weapon early, or you're looking for a new gun, this might be a good time, because in a couple of hits you'll probably have the highest possible rarity. In the second to last section we're covering 278 hits ranging from round 31 to 40. Green and blue are now more rare than getting the ray gun, and the majority of your box hits will be orange and purple weapons. And finally we see a noticeable increase in the drop rate of the ray gun. 1 out of 20 hits to get either one of the wonder weapons is still pretty rare, but it doesn't really get better than this. And that brings us to the final chart, which contains 408 hits from the mystery box, all above round 40. Most of these results came from round 40 to 60. I also did around 10 box hits at the end of round 100, all of which were orange. I think from here on out it doesn't really matter that much. I got more or less the same results at early 40s as I did in early 60s. Orange is most common rarity, but sometimes there will be a purple one. I did get more gold rarity, but I've also had more box hits in this section, and the percentage is exactly the same as the previous one. Now I also wanted to take a deeper look at the odds of the ray gun and the die shockwave separately. I think this can be pretty interesting for speedrunners and people who want to go for high rounds. This table shows, out of the total amount of hits I did, how many times I've gotten the wonder weapon and at which round. The bottom line shows how many hits it would take on average to get any of the wonder weapons. I've put the ray gun and the die shockwave together because it seems that they are both equally as rare to get from the box. So if you want to know the chance of getting the ray gun, it's double the number on the bottom line. Looking at this table, there is also something strange that I mentioned a couple minutes ago. For some reason between round 16 and 20, I got basically the same results as between round 26 and 30. I honestly think that I just got very lucky with some ray gun drops and this is just a coincidence. So don't assume that this is your best chance of getting it. Other than that, as I said before, a 1 in 20 chance of getting any wonder weapon is as good as it gets. Also, getting the ray gun early on is extremely rare. Up until round 15 I got it once out of 500 mystery box hits. So for high rounders it's probably best to wait until round 30 to go for the ray gun. If you want to speedrun round 100, obviously hoping for the Coffin dance will be your best bet, or if you didn't get it, I'd say start hitting the box as of round 26. For Easter egg speedrunners, I think it's safe to say that getting the die from the box is a very bad strategy. The Coffin dance will be better for that. And that brings us to the final part of the video, the Coffin dance. I collected data from doing the Coffin dance Easter egg 166 times. There's a few things to point out here. First of all, doing it on a higher round didn't seem to affect the results. Of course I didn't do it as many times as the mystery box, so the data may be less accurate, but there wasn't any kind of trend noticeable in getting better rewards on higher rounds. The second thing I want to point out is that the color of the smiley on the loot box does not affect the reward you're getting. Out of 166 reward chests, I got gold rarity 42 times. And it had the orange smiley only 14 times. More than double the amount of times I waited for the smiley, I just got something else. So waiting for the smiley to turn orange before opening it is useless. It's something that I knew was a hoax from the beginning, but there's still some people who think this is a thing, so I did want to include it. Now as I've said, I've gotten gold rarity guns 42 times. So that equals 25% or 1 out of 4 times doing the Coffin dance. The ray gun came out 26 times or 15% and the die shockwave 16 or 10%. So it's safe to say that for speedrunners this is still the best way to get those wonder weapons. Of course you can only do this once per game, so you may have to try it 10 times on average, but there really isn't a better way to get a wonder weapon. And that wraps it up for this video. I know it was a lot of number crunching, but I do hope you got some useful information out of this. Anyway, thank you all for watching and see you next time.